Hey teachers, Haley here. I am an assistant teaching professor, and in this new series, I am going to be walking through, and together we're going to build my new sort of rebuild, my senior level sort of special seminar course. In the past, I had taught it fully in person, 2 days a week, and I am converting it into a, kind of from scratch, essentially designed asynchronous online experience for the fall 2025 semester. So my semester starts the end of August. It is right now mid-July. So I am going to be really rocking through and taking this class and taking you along on the journey from kind of all the ideas that have been swirling in my head of what I want to change, how I want to structure this to be an online experience, instead of that in-person experience, going from all those initial ideas all the way through the content and what I'm going to put in my Canvas shell. So I'm glad that you're here. Like and subscribe so you can follow along with these videos. There's definitely going to be a lot of parts to this show and tell series as we literally build a whole class. As I'm going through, I'm also going to be explaining, and I'll be linking and talking through the different tools that I'm using. So from the actual content kind of production workflow and tools that you might find useful as you're building classes, as well as the tools I'm going to be embedding for that, engagement, interaction, and learning in this asynchronous environment. Of course, students hate and they talk about all the time, and I completely agree and understand, right? They don't want to feel like they're teaching themselves, which happens too often in online classes because we don't kind of build in as much guided kind of engagement structures and checkpoints. So that is the problem that I am top of mind going to try and solve and address, and I have some tools that I'm really excited to test out, both from Teacher's Pet, of course, but also from all the amazing kind of asynchronous ed tech tools out there. So I'm really excited for that journey. Now, in this video, this is part one of who knows how many actually it will take. But in, part one here, I am going to flip the camera and I'll be giving you some commentary over a speed build of the work that I started with, which is figuring out the learning outcomes. So today we're just going to talk my process to align learning outcomes with, kind of job skills, course skills, department skills, and how I just start actually mapping out the start of a new class in my course building spreadsheet. And you can grab that course building spreadsheet if you're like, ooh, I love organizing and visualizing things like that over at the Teacher's Pet shop as well. All right, let's hop into it and build some learning outcomes. All right, so with every class and prep, I like to start with my course building spreadsheet, and so this just kind of tracker. I am using Excel, but I also have a Google Sheets version. Basically, with this, kind of spreadsheet and tracker, my goal, I'd like to just keep a checklist, of my sort of course prep from the semester flow, which we're working on, to the outline, learning outcomes as well, are kind of the start and just all the way through. And so I'm just, grabbing a brand new spreadsheet, renaming that, and kind of starting from scratch. Now, I did teach this class last year as sort of fully in person, as I mentioned. And so I do have like that spreadsheet, but of course an in-person class is fundamentally different, right? The needs, the design, the way that we structure things has to be different. And I think one area, right, where a lot of students get frustrated and then, a lot of people kind of go a little bit sort of wrong is they think, oh, I'll just post everything from my in-person class online and then boom, I have an online class. And that's definitely not my goal here. I want to I am basically designing this almost from scratch. We'll see, I'll keep some of the project stuff the same, but I am treating it kind of like a brand new prep from scratch. So that way I'm thinking of it in terms of that asynchronous online experience, and not, falling into that trap of just publish stuff online and it's online, because that's, not really good interaction. So that's why I'm starting a brand new spreadsheet for this. And the first thing I like to do is, update it to my semester calendar. And so I was just going through and, checking, what's, my university's timelines. We have some holidays and that kind of stuff, which don't matter so much in an asynchronous online class, but I do like to go in and put, the withdraw deadline, drop deadline, so that way it'll be in there for my students. Okay, so this class is called Intercultural Technical Communication, but I actually had gone through and kind of proposed and pitched to the department, hey, I have some ideas of how we should adjust this. So that's another reason I'm treating it as a new build, because it kind of is a new build. I'm taking what it exists in the catalog, of course, which is kind of this not quite a special topics, but it is sort of a specialized elective that students get to choose from their upper division core. And I am kind of updating it to be a lot more focused on, machine translation development, how tech is playing into our globalization strategies, and then I want to focus a lot more on their project management and professional development, because my roster is almost entirely seniors, and many of them are planning to graduate in the winter or the spring. And so I, had written up this whole little kind of like proposal just to present it to my department and get their thoughts. And, my chair's like, cool, love it, like definitely rebuild it this way. So I'm just kind of returning to that. And we'll be, dropping some of that in there. And as I was returning to it, was like already, right, I've been thinking about some of these updates and changes. And so I'm just kind of capturing a little bit of that in this written kind of document and form. But basically with this class, the goal is to give students that theoretical, so, talking, theory, background, history, context, as well as a practical look and experience when it comes to, international writing for our field, which is, technical writing. And so I like to pull the catalog entry as reference, and then, I grab those kind of just new little elements that I am focused on for this semester, and I like to put that at the top of my learning outcome matrix, so that way I'm always referencing back and always making sure that it's connected. And one of the things that I am really proud of for my course evaluations is very consistently and often students say, wow, everything in this class, related and built onto itself. And I really love getting that feedback, because I do work hard. And this is kind of how I just literally put all the topics right in front of me as I'm building the learning outcomes, as I'm thinking about my projects. And that's why I like my learning outcome matrix tab. Now, another key piece of the learning outcomes that I like to do is go through, and last I'll just basically double check that my learning outcomes actually match with also some career skills, especially because of that professional development piece with them being seniors and about to graduate. So I then like to hop into LinkedIn. And this stage will be important and used in when I'm figuring out the projects themselves, especially. But I basically like to mirror that from job descriptions that relate to this topic, this class, this field. And so I'm just in LinkedIn jobs, and I searched up the topic of the class. Localization, globalization, project managers basically is the most connected skill set. And I'm just kind of looking through a few of them. First, I did filter it to my area, just to kind of get a sense. That way I can also tell my students, like, hey, if you really love this class and this type of work, here are, the next steps if you would want this to be related to your career, and here's how many are in our area. And then I do go through and just update it to be, just for like the United States, so I get obviously a bigger poll. And I tend to look for, like the big name companies, just to, so students like recognize, oh wow, even this giant company works for it. But of course, there's 200 results for this super niche kind of specific thing. And so I'll also reinforce to them that the semester that, a lot of companies have this type of role. So I go through and look for the key job responsibilities, and I just make sure a lot of, the verbs match what my learning outcomes are, and adjust if necessary, which I really don't need to. And then yeah, in the future ones when I'm making the projects, I like to pull these job responsibilities kind of directed to the project. So we'll see that. But yeah, with just this, kind of quick review of the job landscape, I feel extremely positive about my learning outcome matrix, and about the loose project ideas that I have connected to those outcomes, and that there is a very clear connected through line to the jobs, and just like career landscape, responsibilities, kind of key skills that I'm trying to prepare these, 4,000 level sort of junior, senior, graduating, pre-professional students with. So now I'm working on the like actual outcomes list. I do, use Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge, though I don't go like complete map to map. I kind of just start with that baseline of the different levels, and of course, you can see all the like verbs that are attached. But then I just kind of like think of my own verbs, and I pretty oftenly use kind of something like recognize, integrate, practice, generate. And then I added the collaborate because our students are often in a position for our field to work remotely or at least hybrid. So I want to really focus on that as a professional development as we kind of go through. And then the ungrading part is really how and why they always have kind of like and assess their effort. And I like to set that up to mock or mimic, the self-evaluations we all have to do in the workplace, right, for our annual performance review. So with the kind of 6 outcomes that I'm focused on the big picture, now I'm just thinking about the structure. And I've been thinking about this, and I know that I want to do kind of this progressive bundle. So basically, we'll have the whole unit, and since it is asynchronous online, they can kind of self-pace a little bit. With the exception of the last unit, they'll have to start it by a target date. So they're self-paced to a point, but there is kind of a overlapping deadline they have to be aware of. So basically, as they go through, if they complete, less than half of the first unit, that's an F. As soon as they get to 50% of all the stuff in the first unit, that will be a D. But when they actually complete the whole first unit, then they have locked in a C. And if they want to stop and they're fine with the C, then I'll know that they will have gotten that basically like theoretical, historical kind of knowledge, and they're going to do what they're going to do. But if they keep going, right, they finish everything in unit 2, which of course gets a little bit harder, starts getting into more of the practical aspects, they'll get a B. And then if they complete all of the work, and get through unit 3, then that's how they will get an A at the end of the semester. So each unit is basically a giant bundle unlocking a new letter grade. So then within the bundle, I have to kind of think harder about this, and we'll do, the next videos will really get into this a lot more, but I do want to have some sort of like pre-trek quiz, which will just be, complete and complete, basically like, hey, where do you stand with your knowledge now? And then some sort of, post-check reflection to make sure that they're, assessing their effort and thinking about their growth. Otherwise, I'll of course have things like reading guides, and then a big project in each unit that I will be brainstorming more, but that's the general structure of how I want to do it. So what I do next in my learning outcome matrix, and I've like color coded it, because again, I just like visualizing it that way. But basically I go through the general assignments, and I do know kind of what I'm thinking, what they're doing, the big project categories, and I'm basically determining, are we introducing the concepts there? Are they practicing a skill? Is it actually, a full assessment, or is it not measured? And keep in mind that it's totally okay if you're not measuring every single outcome on every single thing. Like you can't do every skill every single time. And that was something I had to like mentally work through, just as a reminder. So for, right, my outcome list, number 1, okay, and they recognize, right, these factors, influence, rhetorical situation. And so really the reading guide is the big place they're going to practice that. But then when they go through and do some of these sort of module, like weekly level stuff, that's where I'm actually assessing, okay, are they understanding the reading, the materials, the video lectures that I'll create. Then I just kind of go through and figure out, okay, are we assessing everything? Are we practicing? And just making sure that every single learning outcome is being assessed at some stage, with plenty of opportunities for them to practice it. So that's kind of what I have set up first, is, just getting in and getting those learning outcomes. All right, I feel so much better now that all of those kind of learning outcomes and ideas that have been just in my head are down, in my spreadsheet. And we'll be returning to this spreadsheet for at least the first few parts of this series, because that is really where I like to capture everything, get it all situated before I start working on the syllabus, before I start hopping into Canvas. So now that my course learning outcomes kind of ready and mapped out, the next video in this series, I think we'll tackle the project ideas next, or possibly the actual kind of course module content. I kind of do them together. Obviously, kind of the content then feeds into what exactly the projects look like. So, you know, parts maybe 2 and 3 are going to really cover what the semester ends up looking like with all of those points. So come back to the channel and join me for that. Until then, I hope that you're having a, you know, good time, creative time, inspiring time, getting ready for your fall semester. If you're teaching a summer class, I'm sure that's, you know, maybe halfway through to almost wrapping up. So that's going well, and I'll see you next time. I hope that you have a great class.